Welcome back to another episode of Broke Up, Not Broken. I'm your host, Jamie Lima, and founder of Allegiant Divorce Solutions, where we help people prepare for, navigate, and recover financially from divorce. This podcast is your one-stop shop for mastering your life and your finances throughout the entire divorce process. Today's guest is Skye Bellarmine, author, coach, keynote speaker, and survivor in every sense of the word. After surviving a catastrophic collision with a wrong-way driver that left her in a coma, Skye was told she would never walk or use her arm again. But she defied every prognosis. While recovering physically, she was also trapped in a 20-year emotionally abusive marriage marked by narcissistic control, gaslighting, and trauma bonding. Skye ultimately broke free from that marriage, rebuilt her identity, and has made it her life's mission to help other women recognize the signs of narcissistic abuse, navigate high conflict divorces, and walk the hard road back to self-worth, stability, and freedom. Through her Breaking Solace trilogy and transformational coaching, Skye teaches women how to reclaim their power, build a supportive tribe, and create a fulfilling life after toxic love. This is a conversation about grit, growth, and getting back up. So grab a cup of coffee or your beverage of choice, buckle up, and let's once again get you personally and financially empowered. Skye, it is so great to have you with us here today.
Thank you, Jamie. So glad to be here.
Yeah. I think we have a lot in common in some aspects. We went through some pretty challenging divorces, and the people that we left were definitely challenging themselves. But we were kind of talking about this on the lead up to our conversation here today. There are a lot of really bad N words out there, and none of which I will say opposed to this one. But the word narcissist is thrown around a lot these days, and I hear it a lot. I know judges hear it a lot, attorneys hear it a lot, and so on. And it makes them cringe. It makes me cringe. So we've got to be very careful about using that word, right? And you have a ton of experience in the space.
Oh, absolutely, Jamie. Yeah, the narcissism word gets thrown around so casually. And, if somebody just glances at themselves in a mirror walking by, oh, they're a narcissist. Well, no. No, it's a lot deeper than that. And I was actually married for 20 years to a very malignant narcissist, and even was given a book by a friend called Stop Walking on Eggshells. And there's a questionnaire in the beginning of it. You take a little quiz to see if you are in a relationship with one. Like psychologists come in and say, hey, these are the traits. These are the red flags. And my ex fit all 30 boxes, like total textbook. And why? I mean, I see myself as fairly intelligent. Why I didn't see it? I get blamed for everything. You get yelled at every day. You feel like you're worth nothing. You're never enough. And the gaslighting, all that was going on. And I just figured that was normal marriage. No, it's not. No, it's not. So
the challenge is that so many people are in these marriages, and some of them don't even realize that they're in them till many years down the road, or sometimes even decades have passed, right? So what are some of the signs that maybe you saw, or signs that you see, in some of the people that you work with, that people need to be on the lookout for?
A lot of it comes in emotional abuse, like being overly condescending and judgmental and correcting. I hear a lot of correcting between spouses, and somebody will be telling a story and they'll mention, well, that happened on a Wednesday. And then, no, honey, that was Tuesday. Like, that's not a pivotal point in what this person is trying to tell the group, And so a lot of criticism, you begin to doubt your self-worth. Your esteem starts dropping, depression sets in, and it's like the movie Gaslight. I don't know if you saw the movie Gaslight, where that term was coined. 1944, Ingrid Bergman was being gaslighted and manipulated by a very narcissistic type husband. And there's one day, and they get their flying monkeys. So if there's people around them that they're using to make you doubt yourself. And that was my case. He was lying to friends about me and telling, spreading rumors and that kind of thing that weren't true at all. So in the movie, she decides to get dressed up and go for a walk, the main character. And she gets to the door, and the house manager comes to her and she said, what are you doing? I'm going to go for a walk, is what Ingrid Bergman says. And she says, oh, no, miss, you might get lost. And her self-esteem is so low at that point. She says, yeah, you're right. And she turns around and goes back inside. And you get to that point. you really get to that point where you're not even sure where you're going half the time. And they keep telling you, they drive people out of your life. My ex drove my brother out of my life, and has since passed away. I got to see him one more time. But I mean, they do that because they want to isolate you. And I always thought, I thought my brother was mad at me. And my ex would say, no, he probably is, but you've got me, like they want to isolate you and get you all to themselves. So that's one thing. They say people start leaving your life and you find out later that it was your ex driving them out. The rages, you don't need, raising voices does not have to happen to have a conversation and resolve some type of conflict. And so, but the rages, they will just start yelling at you for no reason. So that's another sign. And after I was still stuck in the house with him 2 weeks after I filed, and I said, you haven't yelled at me in 2 weeks. And he said, well, I finally figured out that's not the way to handle you. Yeah. Like I need a handler anyway. But I mean, so the escalated voices, the driving people, just people kind of leaving your life and you don't really know why. The just making you doubt yourself, questioning every decision you make. So there's all these different signs. And yes, I look back on it now, Jamie, those signs were there when I first met him. I don't know. I don't know. I just went with it for 2 decades. And then, like I said, when he was out of town, my friends started telling me everything. By the time he got back, I already found a lawyer. I'd started building that tribe that I help women build. A trusted friend, a family member you can have as a confidant, a therapist, your legal team, your attorney, your forensic accountant. I had already started building that team. And then it took 21 months to divorce him because he fought me the whole way, because they see you as an extension of themselves. Like they're the puppeteer, you're the puppet. They push your buttons. And like one day he was raging at me. I forget why that time, walks into the other room, comes back later, says, oh, Skye, I bought your favorite coffee. Would you like a cup? And I said, no, I'm good. I love coffee, but I was still reeling from just being yelled at over nothing, basically. So that's kind of a long answer to your question, but there are very, very specific signs that are just textbook indicators.
What about on the financial side of things, right? Because we talked about it, we've already talked about the emotional and the kind of the wranglings that go along with dealing with people like this. Like, so what about the financial aspects?
Well, what I call it, when I coach and teach, I call it the 4 F's. Okay. So fear and finances are why many, and I know it happens to both genders, but the reason women typically stay in these toxic marriages is fear and finances. They really just don't think they can make it on their own. And that leads to continued frustration. And you're with this abuser and you just feel you fear you can't get out. So I really help them figure out a financial plan, as you do, and an emotional plan, because you've got to set boundaries and all that. But my ex actually, and I told you this story earlier, but I'll share it with the audience. He tried to get his attorney fired for losing the divorce. Okay. His attorney has a restraining order against him. That tells you something. And secondly, because he made more money than I did just in a daily job as a profession, I'm a personal trainer. He's a financial advisor. He actually emailed his forensic accountant, which you're not supposed to do because that can become evidence in court and depositions, whatever legal event you're involved in. And he did. And he told his forensic accountant, first of all, that Skye deserves nothing. After 20 years of putting up with him, anyway, Skye deserves nothing. And secondly, he told the forensic accountant, the expert, which discount rate to use in the financial projected calculations. And so he had to read his emails back. My attorney was questioning him during this deposition, and it was during the pandemic, so it was all virtual. We were all on Zoom. He had to read it to all of us what he had told his forensic accountant to do. And, that he just took control, and he wanted me to basically live under a bridge, probably. And I will tell you, one day I was driving home from work, and there nearby, I came off the interstate, and under this bridge was a very long-haired blonde just standing there. And I cried a little. I'm like, that's probably what he envisioned. And I will tell you, that's not what happened. Because, like I said, he tried to get his attorney fired for losing. So, but if they just want to control you and they want to control the finances. And I'll tell you this, every month, and I have this scene, the scenes in Breaking Solace are I can't make this stuff up. And people are like, did he really do that? Yeah. Every month we'd have, a discussion about the credit card bills and all that. And he'd always say, okay, Skye, I know it's okay. I'll move some money. I'm thinking, what did I didn't buy anything big. So then we get into the divorce, and my attorney, we had the Mint database where you can see each other's transactions. So my attorney said, log into that thing and see where the cash is going, because we still had a joint account because it was during the divorce. And oh my God, he spent $7,000 in one summer on clothes and fragrances. Mm-hmm.
Was the involvement of the forensic accountant simply because he's a financial planner and you thought there was going to be some funny business going on, which I could have probably were the angle, right?
Yeah. They were on the lookout for where my ex could have hidden money or whatever. And he fought the whole, even joint accounts. He would say, investment accounts. He'd say, no, I really meant to just put that in my name. Well, why didn't you? It's been joint for, 10 years. So, there was a bunch of back and forth. And finally, what my attorney was telling me is that the narcissist in these negotiations has to feel that they won a battle. There's the war going on. It was, like I said, 21 months, back and forth. And so the final battle that I gave him was tax related, just to have a little upper hand on some of the tax, because we had another couple of joint tax filings that we would have to do. And so then he signed. He signed. Once I agreed to that, he signed. Wow. But I know, I wish I'd known that on day one. But anyway, it was to me, Jamie, what was so puzzling was changing his mind. They act like they're all tough and the smartest. He always said he was the smartest person in the room and nobody understand him. And his performance evaluations would always say he's inflexible and always has to have his way and, never listens to others and all that kind of stuff, which is totally true. And so, but he always said, I'm just the smartest person there and nobody understands that. And so I have Blake, the narcissistic character in my book trilogy, always saying that same kind of thing, they just don't get me at work. And so Tally, the main character, she listens like I did, just you keep listening, but they want to make everybody think that that they have prowess, they have finesse, and they know the most about anything that they're doing. And that includes the finances. So it was definitely a roller coaster ride.
Well, and so let's stick with that for a second. So walk me through how you were able to go from this financial, I don't know, maybe a sense of unworthiness or I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm sure there are a lot of women, and I say this, and probably some men that might be out there that are listening that are wow, I'm dealing with this exact same thing. I feel like I've been beaten down. I can barely get myself out of bed in the morning, and then getting yourself through that entire experience, because I've been there. I had health issues that cropped up in my own situation just because of the sheer stress that is associated with the divorce. So how do you go from that unworthy frame of mind to now financially capable?
Well, first of all, like I said, making sure you can't walk this road alone. And it takes friends and family and faith and therapy and all that to kind of get your tribe. You need some people around you, first of all. And so many awesome pieces of advice from my attorney, but one piece was, don't ever have a financial conversation with him. So I was stuck in the house for 6 months before I could get my finances together to get out and at least rent something temporarily, so to get out of there. And so, he'd say, okay, let's talk. We can talk about finances. And I said, no, I can't. My attorney said not to. He said, I won't tell. I said, well, no, I'm not talking. So first of all, set boundaries. Like get your boundaries. Don't have financial conversations with them. And another thing is learn as much about your marital financial condition as you possibly can. I cannot emphasize that enough. And that's why I had Tally, who's an interior designer in my book, suddenly take an interest in the finances, because that's what I did. So suddenly I said, well, yeah, you've been wanting to talk about investments and all that. Let's do that. So I got the passwords to all the accounts during this conversation. I got the bottom line of what our marital asset base was, so that I would know percentage wise, what I might be entitled to along the way. And so I cannot emphasize that enough to try to understand, because I know I have friends who didn't even fill out the statement of position or the statement of income and expenses in the beginning, like what you're estimating your household is worth and all that kind of stuff. They didn't know. They knew nothing about the finances, and they were the ones being the petitioner on filing for divorce. And I'm like, no, you've got to learn. You've got to try to figure it out. Even if you don't have a financial acumen at all, just try to get some numbers. Be interested. Try to find some information. And then, like I said, having a team together to help you walk the path, and really hold your cards close to your vest. Don't, like, I remember when I was still stuck in the house, we were working outside or whatever, and he said, so personal trainers that's their income and they exist, they're fine, they live. I said, well, let me get their names. I said, no, but you can be a personal trainer and be just fine in life. And, I just you learn to kind of what I call, or what's called in the industry of narcissistic abuse studies and research, is gray rocking, where it's saying something without saying anything. Okay. So I could start talking and say, we're talking about, I don't know, professions or the dining room furniture or whatever. And just kind of carry on the conversation, but don't give anything that can ever come back at you. Don't give them any ammunition that they could bring up in court or in mitigation or deposition or anything like that. So that's excellent advice. And just stand by your why. I had to learn to stand by my why. And that's something that I coach people on, is why. What's your why? And whether I do goal achievement talks too, I'm for keynotes, like, and workshops. So whatever you're trying to do, if it's redesigning a room or divorcing a narcissist or writing a book or whatever you're doing, that goal or a career move, what are your 20 reasons why? Why are you doing this? And I sat down and did that, Jamie, probably about 4 months into this divorce process. And I sent that to my attorney. I kept a file for myself just to remember, because it's going to be hard. The road to divorce can be very difficult. It can be very hostile. It can be very traumatic, and especially when there's a narcissist involved, and with them trying to control the finances and all that. I mean, he even took his paycheck out of our joint account when I was out of the country helping a friend. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, they'll do things like that. So, and again, on the phone with my attorney, like, okay, let's fix this. And so communication, I cannot emphasize the importance of communication. And my attorney at times would say in the beginning, just sit tight. And I was like, but I have 10 questions. And so it became like Friday would roll up, and I've been working all week, and then I'd have time to think, okay, what's he going to do next? It's like a chess game. What's he done? What's he going to do next? How am I going to not react, but respond? And I have a whole list of questions. And I knew my attorney sometimes would be working the weekends, but I'd always give him a call and say, hey, here's the questions I have, he called it my sunny Sunday calls. So Monday morning, and it's in his voice mailbox, he'd have all my questions, and then we'd work through them that week. But communication, having your tribe around you, understanding at least at some level what your financial situation looks like are very key. Yeah,
I mean, that last point, I want to drive that home simply because I've been a financial planner for 20 years now, and I'm creeping up on 21. And wow. I can tell you that one of the things that one of the biggest challenges in the work that we do in traditional wealth management, retirement planning, investment management setups, not the divorce piece, but on like the traditional work we do in that space, there's usually one person driving that conversation. And let's just face it, it's usually the dude. And I've so many times I'm like, why is your wife not here? Like, and we even started instituting a rule where it's like, if you're not going to at least participate at least one time per year in these conversations jointly, so we can all get on the same page with your financial situation, we're not going to take you on as a client.
Wow.
Because
That's
you have to be involved. So if you're listening and you've heard me say this, I mean, this is now the second season. We're on episode like 85 or 90, right? At this point, right? I've probably said this 25 times. If you're listening to this right now and hear what Skye has to say and hear what I have to say, if you're doing that, because you're doing yourself and your family a disservice. And, I mean, I'm so happy that you brought that up because it's incredibly important for people to be involved. I don't know why it happens. People like to bury their head in the sand and maybe they get nervous and it's just their own money script that they have to deal with and whatever. But sometimes you got to get over it because it could come back to haunt you.
Well, yeah. And people just get a little, maybe, I don't know if there's a fear factor or something in there. When you bring up finances, some people just kind of get like a deer in the headlights look. And really, it's dollars and cents, and there's different, just kind of put together a grid or I put a spreadsheet together on what accounts do you have jointly? What do you have individually? What are the other assets that are involved in the marriage? Is there houses, cars, boats, whatever? And just kind of put together a spreadsheet on what's there, what can be divided, what can be divided and to at least have it there. You don't have to understand derivatives or, Bitcoin or whatever. You don't have to understand it. You just have to get some information, get some data, something that you have so that you yourself in your head have a feel, just what I wanted, that bottom line number. So that whenever the negotiations were going on, I knew what that bottom right-hand corner cell was going to look like in that. And whether whoever got whatever percentage, that it was going to come down to that total. And so that was a big piece for me just to understand what had been accumulated during that 20-year time.
Yeah.
So, and it was my college roommate called, because we had some friends from college that were going through a really nasty divorce at the time. And she called me. It was right after I'd filed. And I said, well, how are they doing? Talking about our friends. And, well, it's this and this and this. I just can't believe anybody would file for divorce during a pandemic. And I said, let me step outside. And I told her what was going on. And she was like, oh, my God. And then, you know what, Jamie? It's been interesting because family, friends, I run into neighbors. I saw a neighbor at the grocery store the other day, and the signs were there. People were seeing signs that something was not right with my ex. But nobody wants to step into that space of your marriage and say anything. Even relatives are like, yeah, we knew something wasn't right, but we just figured you'd figure it out. Oh, well, yeah. After my car wreck, my really good friend, my orthopedic surgeon, I called him and we were just talking and he said, well, I always knew he was controlling you, but I just thought you were handling it. And I'm like, I was trying to handle it, but it went on for so long that I really didn't know which way was up. Yeah. So until some people really stepped into my life and said, hey, you're different when you're not around him. What's going on? So,
I get it. I've had the same experience too. It's like, I wish you would have told me when I was in it because maybe I would have opened my eyes to some of these things, but as soon as the dust settles on the divorce, everybody's like, I should have told you that 10 years ago. I'm like, wait, what did you want? I know. But, so I want to talk a little bit about we've talked about the divorce process and things you're dealing with during it. And now so let's talk a little bit about the healing component of this. Right. And one of the things I picked up as I was doing some research leading into our call today is that you said recovery is 90% what you do with what happens to you. Mm-hmm. How do you maybe touch on that a little bit? But one of the things where that comment is stemming from is I'm like, how do you get yourself through this experience and you've recovered, you're now in this, the phase of recovery. how do you keep yourself from getting sucked back in, in future relationships?
Well, yeah, that can happen. So life is 10% what happens to you and 90% what you do with it. And Jamie, that whole idea kind of was born of my car wreck. Like, I was hit by a wrong way driver. This other driver was outrunning police on the wrong way on the interstate, and I swerved. I tried to get out of her way and I couldn't. And so she nailed me, coma, 12 surgeries to rebuild me. And this was the arm they said I'd never use again. And yes, I can stand up and walk and all that. But it took 6 years and 12 surgeries for me to recover from all that. And during that time, I just started thinking, people are like, oh, are you going to drive again? Well, yeah, I mean, I got to go to work and stuff. It's like, you can't let what happens to you define you, to limit you. And so you try to figure out what you can do with it. How can I help somebody else through my experiences? And so I don't want anybody to continue to exist in any type of toxicity, any type, and all narcissistic relationships are toxic, but not all toxic relationships are narcissistic. Okay. There's a spectrum of toxicity there. And I just want to help women. That's why I started writing the Breaking Solace trilogy. Like, during the divorce, I started writing that. And so Breaking Solace is where Tally, the main character, starts seeing these behaviors that Blake's exhibiting, and what she goes to a therapist and she starts trying to figure things out. And then escaping is actually when she plans her escape route, and gets through the divorce and all that. And then the third book is entitled Without Solace. And that is a paradox. Their last name is Solace. So she will be having peace. And one thing that I had to learn, like right after I filed, and finished the divorce 21 months later, my mind was like, other than work, pretty much was on that. I wake up thinking about the divorce. I go to bed thinking about what's he going to do next? What's he going to do next? That pit of the stomach. I'm so glad that's gone. But people, I said, well, what do I do? Like, what? And people said, well, what did you used to like to do? Because I gave up all my pastimes for 20 years because I had to do what he wanted to do. And so I did, you just end up going with the flow because you don't want to make them mad. And so I thought, wait a minute, I used to play golf. Oh my gosh, I used to play golf. I love golf. I even he was going to play golf with me when we first got married. I had a set of clubs made for him. Yeah, they sat in the garage. Anyway, I couldn't watch golf on TV because he wanted to watch something else. So I started playing golf again. And so I'm not great, but the women's PGA is not going to call me anytime soon. But I'm back out on the course, Jamie. I joined a club.
Love it.
And so, well, what else do you like to do? So you have to remember your past. Part of the healing process is remembering your pastimes. I used to play piano. So I thought, well, let's do that. So there's a Steinway downstairs in my living room now. It's like, what did I give up? Ask yourself, what did you give up to keep the peace? And then start bringing those activities back into your life. And yes, you go with dating apps and all that kind of stuff. You might end up dating some controlling people again. Yeah. I experienced that a little bit because you're an intelligent empath, and that's what they feed on. A narcissist wants an intelligent empath because they have no empathy. And they want somebody that has the characteristics that they would love to have, but they never will. And so that was that. And so friends around me said, don't go down that road again. I'm like, okay, so no. But I will tell you, I've met somebody amazing, really sweet, not controlling, and I'm happy. And people will come up to me, Jamie, they'll see me in the grocery store. Oh my God, Skye, you're just like glowing. You're like happier than I've ever seen you. What is going on? I said, well, I divorced. I met somebody new. I'm playing golf again. I have my job that I love. I'm doing some teaching and speaking and writing, and life, not to be cliche, life is good. Life is good. But I will tell you this, it's still up and down a little bit because there are triggers. There are things, somebody says something or ask about the ex or whatever. And, there are things that kind of make you remember, and then you're thinking, but then right after that, you don't go dark like you were when you're in the relationship. You think, but that was then, and this is now. And so the healing process continues, and it's just, I want to help people realize that they may be in a tunnel, and it may seem really dark in this toxic relationship, but there is a light. There is a light. And like I said, keeping the friends and the family and the faith and having people around you to walk with you. Because I'm one of those people that when things are going down, I'm one of those people that just kind of retreat, off the grid a little bit and try to figure it out. But I had to learn during that process that I couldn't do that alone. Yeah. So I had to have people around me. And that also launches the healing process, because you are around people who actually care about you, who are not wearing a mask, who are not just having one little playbook of certain things that they say and do all the time that becomes very predictable with a narcissist over time anyway. But you have people that truly care about you, and that is vitally important for the healing process.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, Skye, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing all this incredible insight. I mean, there's a lot of people that are out there that certainly need to learn from your, what I think is like raw honesty and, that kind of that unshakable grit and strength that you've had. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. The journey from, trauma to triumph, really offers listeners, I think, an incredible amount of hope. So to learn more about Skye's work, coaching, and Breaking Solace Trilogy, listeners, we're going to link to her website, all of her books and the social platforms and whatnot, all in our show notes. So don't worry. You don't have to worry about jotting that information down. We'll make sure it's in the notes for you. And if you're facing a financially complex or emotionally challenging divorce yourself, and we can certainly help you on the financial side of things, reach out to us at Allegiant Divorce Solutions. We can help you provide and rebuild yourself with a clear, confident future. Visit us at allegiantds.com. Be sure to just subscribe to Broke Up Not Broken for more real stories just like this, practical tools, and emotional guidance. Until next time.